All right, continuing with our notes about graphing a linear equation. The last video wrapped up at the end, as introducing standard form. So here's our standard form, ax plus bx equals c. And this is just a different way to write a straight line. We could change it into slope-intercept form if we wanted to, but we're going to look at how we can use an equation in this form to graph a straight line. We have a four-step process here similar to slope-intercept form. First step, in this case, we're checking to see if it's in standard form, and then the middle two steps are where it's going to be a little different. We're going to find the y-intercept just similar to slope-intercept form, but instead of the slope, we're also going to find the x-intercept. So we're focusing on these two special points. And we have to remember the special things about intercepts are one of the points, one of the values is always going to be 0. For example, if we're looking for an x-intercept, y has to equal 0 every time. This point will always be on the x-axis, which means y has to be 0. And similarly for the y-intercept, whenever we're looking at a y-intercept, x is always going to be 0 every time, because this point's always going to be on the y-axis. So let's look at what that means for us when we're trying to graph a line. So here, example A, we have a line in standard form. It looks like ax plus by equals c. That's how I know it's in standard form. It looks the same. And we're going to find the x-intercept and y-intercept and use those points to graph the line. So to find the x-intercept, we have to remember that y is going to be 0. First bullet point. We're looking for the x-intercept, so that tells me that y is 0. So I'm going to plug a 0 in here and solve for x. So we're going to use some of our solving skills to figure out what the x value is when y equals 0. So I replaced y with 0. Now 2 times 0 is 0, so this value turns into a 0, and I can just get rid of it because 5x plus 0, well, that's just 5x equals 10. Now if 5x equals 10, well, to get x by itself, I can divide both sides by 5, and that tells me that x equals 2. So my x-intercept is the point 2, 0. Put it on the graph right there. And we're going to do the same thing for the y-intercept. So I just found my x-intercept is the point 2, 0. That's where that came from. We're going to do the same thing to find the y-intercept. The y-intercept has to be on the y-axis, so that tells us that for this point, x is going to be 0. So we're going to take the 0 for x, plug it in here, and we're going to solve what is the value for y when x is 0. And the same thing's going to happen. 5 times 0 is 0, so that term goes away. And we end up with 2y equals 10. Now if 2y equals 10, well, that means, let's see if I can get my red marker to work this time. That means if we divide both sides by 2, y equals 5. So our y-intercept is the point 0, 5. 0, up 5, and there's our y-intercept. Now this line isn't as detailed as the slope-intercept lines, but we have the minimum required amount of points to graph a line. The minimum number of points is 2. If we have 2 points, I can connect them, and we're kind of just going out this way. I'm going to put an arrowhead on the end, and we're going to go up here, and there's our line. I can use both intercepts to graph a line in standard form. Okay, so there's only one more example like this in the notes. I'd like you to pause the video and try part B on your own to graph a line in standard form. Okay, hopefully you paused the video and you tried part B on your own. Let's take a look at the solution. So here's example B. We started out with the equation 3x minus 2y equals 12. To find the x-intercept, I took the value of 0 for y, because if we're looking for the x-intercept, y is 0. Plugged it in here. 3x equals 12 divided by 3, and x equals 4. So here's our x-intercept. Same thing for the y-intercept. If we're looking for the y-intercept, x equals 0. So we plug the 0 value in for x here. And this is a spot where it's easy to make a mistake. 3 times 0 is 0, so that goes away. But this 2y is negative. So when the 3x disappears, 3 times 0 is 0, we have negative 2y equals 12. We can't lose that negative sign. To get y by itself, we divide by a negative 2 on both sides. Y equals negative 6. So there's our y-intercept. Looking over here at the graph, we have the point 4, 0, and 0, negative 6. All right, so that's the end of the notes. We covered graphing a line in slope-intercept form and graphing a line in standard form. Another important topic that was covered here is how to find x and y intercepts. All right, I hope everybody has a good day, and we'll see you later.